Okay, welcome back to Eternally Amy. And we are in the middle of a series on journaling. The Purge System is what I'm calling it. So we're going from basically fear to freedom. And it's kind of a systematic approach that I don't know. It's certainly not something I personally developed. These are journaling techniques that I've just kind of combined from years of experience of journaling. So I'm sure there is a more scientific method of journaling than this, which adopts the same ideas and the same concepts. But last time we talked about finding the power in powerlessness. So basically coming to a place of fundamental yes, that's the goal of journaling is to firstly get out on paper what it is that we're currently dealing with, how we're seeing the world, what's pissing us off. And that, for me anyway, will get me into the flow of writing and it will help get me closer to that goal of fundamental acceptance and fundamental yes and, right? The Father Richard Rohr, yes and. And that's the best place for me to be is in a position of neutrality in how I see things. So today we're going to talk about the U. So the P was finding the power by being powerless, right? By understanding the powerlessness of our situation. So today is the U in Purge, and it's understanding opportunity over obligation. So I stole that phrase, opportunity over obligation, from one of my son's football coaches, because the truth of the matter is we have obligations and daily we have obligations. Like, what are the things that I need to get done today? I mean, my kids aren't going to magically teleport to school, for example, right? They have to get there. What are my obligations? What are the things that I've committed to doing, like making appointments, that I need to show up at? What are these things? And of course, that means looking at my calendar and seeing what's going on. So I have a forecast of that day. And let's be honest, I really can't afford to look at my calendar on the day of only. Like, I have to look at it on the Sunday before the week starts. I have to kind of do the whole month at a glance every week because my calendar is so full with so many kids and so many obligations and so many things going on. And I'll tell you, that will stress me out. It will stress me out to have people look at my calendar when I pull it up, like on a Google. I use Google Calendar currently. I'm not endorsing it. I'm not sponsored by them, whatever. But I'll pull it up and I'll show somebody else uh, what's going on with my calendar so that we can solve a problem together, for example. And they'll start laughing and they're like, oh my gosh, how on earth do you look at that thing? I mean, it's color coded, it's got so much stuff on it, and it is just like thing to thing to thing. It is freaking packed, right? Because I do have a lot of moving pieces, and I'm going to stop minimizing it and say that I don't, because I absolutely do. And nothing makes me terminally unique except for maybe my calendar. It really actually does look pretty different from other people's calendars simply because I have pieces of everybody else's schedules in my own personal calendar because that's the nature of my life as a mother of 8 and as a wife and as an author and all of this stuff. And you all are extremely busy as well with your multitude of spokes that come off of your personal hub in your personal life, right? And so we don't live in a time really where maybe there's one thing that we do every day. And so I just, I will say that I have to constantly look at my calendar and I schedule like a year out. Like I'm the happiest person on the planet if you give me a date for next summer. And right now, being the end of August as of this recording time, that like thrills me like nobody's business because I've planned well into next summer. And of course, things happen and adjustments need to be made, but um, nothing aggravates me more and puts me in a position, sidebar, where I have to start with the P in purge, which is powerlessness, finding power in the powerlessness, than when I do not get an updated or a timely, what I perceive to be as timely calendar from a school or an institution or a place where I feel locked in to relying on somebody else to give me the dates that I need. Oh my gosh, you'll see me come unglued. I have written about that in my purge section of my journal so many times. Okay, so many times. Public service announcements spring something on me that I really need to be at and spring it to me like out of the blue that it's happening tomorrow night or next week, and I'll just freak out. So, yeah, I mean, I do try and allow breathing space in my calendar, and nothing excites me more than when a meeting is canceled because I'm like, ah, free time. But I just I really try and bring my personal calendar under the guidance of the God of my understanding because the truth of the matter is this is an area of growth for me. And so I wanted to start there because it is an opportunity for me to look at my calendar not as obligations, but as opportunities, right? These are all things that had I not gotten sober 13 plus years ago, I would not be doing right now. There is no way I would have the capacity to have 8 kids when I was still drinking. It's unfathomable, right? So, all these things are opportunities for me. They are things that I get to do. And part of this journaling process is to reframe, which is the R. It does not come today, it comes in a later session, but it is to reframe and retrain my brain so that I don't see these things as like, oh my gosh, look at all these obligations. Yeah, there are things that I need to do. But when I look at them as opportunities and not obligations, it changes the tone of everything. Okay. And so, what I want to do is look at my calendar in the morning and just kind of go, okay, these are not rogue, intrusive thoughts. Let me sort through that stuff, that biz in the first section of my journal, the feeling powerless part. And now we are to understanding what are my obligations that I'm going to reframe into opportunities. Okay, so it's similar to mind dumping, but now what we're going to do is really pinpoint what are the brass tacks. Okay, what are the things that are really essential that I do today? Okay, and what you can do sometimes, what sort of helps me is to create a space when I'm looking at my calendar, to create a space in my journal that's kind of like a funnel. So there are these things that I must get done, and those are like at the bottom of the funnel. Like those are the things that have to happen. Those are like I highlight, I circle, I draw arrows toward. And then there are kind of these obtuse things up top. And so where I'm going, of course, is prioritizing these things. But um, to sort of back it up and to also give you a broader viewpoint of this. If you've got a calendar and it's electronic, and there are electronic tools that you love to help organize your obligations, that is great. Because what I do is list out everything that I can think of that is on my calendar and that I also kind of need to do today that's not on my calendar. So maybe it's plan a birthday party. Maybe it's reach out to somebody who I forgot about who, emailed last week and I completely spaced it, right? I want to write all these things down in a list or draw them in that funnel shape, right? I want to do something that will indicate to my brain, yeah, these are the things that in a perfect world I need to do today slash could do today. But here are like the brass tacks. Here's the fundamental, I need to do these. So whatever system it is that you're going to use to prioritize those things, that's great. That's the next step. But oh, another one that I've done before I forget to mention this one, is I sometimes don't even make a list. I will take a blank piece of paper and a black pen or something, and I will just kind of popcorn write all of the different things that have come to mind that morning. And then I get my calendar up and I marry up the two and I circle the things that are like, oh yeah, that is on my list that I need to get done today, right? And so there are different ways that I've done this, is what I'm trying to say, and different things that work for me on different days because I'm crazy like that. But basically, I'm going to explain these different thought patterns and ideas of how you can get to viewing your obligations as opportunities through any of these processes. Okay. So you've dumped all these things out. Now, once you've made a list, once you've looked at your calendar, once you've drawn a funnel or popcorn written out all these things, right? You can sort of see naturally when you compare it to your calendar, which of those things that you wrote down float to the top. And maybe it will help you if those things are not naturally floating to the top, like, oh yeah, dentist appointment, right? Maybe if you can't get that far, and most of you are like experts at this kind of thing, and I am not. I'm like still in a learning process of these things. Maybe it will help you to categorize them. So, like for me, if I'm like, oh, dentist appointment, that's an H. That's for health, right? Like I will bucket these. I will get a system going in my head that's like, F is for family. I've got to schedule that family dinner. So I'm going to list that family dinner out and I'm going to label it with an F. Or I'm going to draw buckets, right? Family, dentist is another, or sorry, health is another bucket. Dentist goes in that bucket, right? Family dinner would go inside the family bucket. Maybe there is a kids bucket, and maybe I list every single one of my kids within that bucket, and maybe they have sub buckets. And it's just things that I've been meaning to do, order more socks for this kid or sign that piece of paper for this kid, whatever it is. Let me tell you what the purpose of doing this is. It is cognitive recall, because a lot of times, again, I don't remember that stuff in the forefront of my brain at the time unless I'm writing it down, right? That hand-body connection. And also, I will get to the point where I am more quickly able to determine what the priorities of that day are. And you can also look at this obligation versus opportunity type section of your journal and kind of see, wow, most of the things that I'm doing today, they really feel like obligations. How am I gonna reframe those when I get to the R so that they look more like opportunities and less like obligations? So there are many directions that these journaling techniques can be tailored, many directions that they can take, right? So I write everything down from the mundane to the grandiose. Maybe I have 3 ideas for a new book or something. I'm going to write those down if I haven't yet. And sort of the byproduct of this is lessening the cognitive load that I'm carrying day to day because I have written those things down. So if they're not presenting themselves to my brain in the morning until I start writing them down, at least I'm recalling them and then I'm getting them down on paper. And I don't have to deal with the ones that haven't floated to the top as being the obligations slash opportunities for today, but they're still written down. So I don't have to try and muster up the brain space to remember them. Does that make sense? Okay, so as I'm trying to organize these things, maybe I draw another bucket or I make another part of the funnel for writing, or I make another section of the list, that is for writing. And I'm going to label those things in my list with a W, whatever it is. But here is the key for today. Here is the key, right? Is now that I'm kind of watching these things float to the top. Say I have like 8 to 10 things that are really like these are 911 things. I need to get these things done today. I'm on a deadline. I've got something going on unexpectedly with one or two of my kids. Then there's another wrench that's thrown in because perhaps, we don't have a working car today, or maybe whatever it is. Maybe there's a sick kid, right? There is a story about a UK rowing team that won gold one year and in the Olympics. And when the coach was asked, you know, basically, how did you do it? How did you coach this rowing team? He said, I ran everything past, basically, I'm paraphrasing here, this one guiding question. And the one guiding question for that rowing team was, does it make the boat go faster? So that is a seemingly really like, kind of easy yet difficult question, right? So let's say, for example, I'm looking at all of my obligations here slash opportunities, and I'm looking at these things and I'm going, okay, I do really want to have lunch with that person, and we have it scheduled. But I haven't heard from that person yet. When we tried to confirm last week, that person wasn't super sure yet. And because the week went on and I didn't loop back on it, or they didn't loop back on it, now we find ourselves on the day of. And when I'm looking at it, what are sort of the benefits of it? Yes, I will reconnect with that person and I do feel out of touch with them, and we need to do that. But also look at all of these other pressing things that may be happening. So maybe that thing can be tabled. Maybe that is not going to make my boat go faster today. Maybe that can be rescheduled. And, since the person hasn't gotten back to me and confirmed that it works great for them and they're on, and a lot of times with moms, this happens anyways, because we have so many unexpected factors pop up in our lives, sick kids and whatnot. But a lot of times that will be the thing that will help us to determine, oh, yeah, okay, that can go. That does not make the boat go faster. And I'm going to eliminate that. I'm going to take the opportunity for that seemingly in my mind obligation at this point to be rescheduled. And so I swear, I know this sounds complicated, like I'm overcomplicating it, and I bet I am, But these are the processes that I have had to make myself go through to avoid a lot of guilt in my calendaring and my commitments, and to learn to say better yeses to things and to learn to say no, right? These ways of thinking have really had to be the backbone of how I have had to learn to honor and treat myself and my schedule and to take care of myself. It's really a self-care thing. So if I am looking at these obligations and it's like, okay, that doesn't feel like it can be turned into an opportunity to me today. Uh, I I really am going to feel like just meeting with that person for lunch, and they haven't confirmed anyway, is going to absolutely just be something that tips the scale. I'm going to go ahead and reschedule that and not feel guilty about it, particularly because that person didn't confirm either, right? And so, okay, this is what I'm saying here. These obligations turn into opportunities when I am able to really stand back and look at this list and look at what is going on with these items that I have listed, right? I will find my power in the powerlessness of my calendar when I can write all of this stuff out and look at it and stand back and be objective about it, right? And there's also ownership and learning. Sometimes I've just overscheduled myself and I need to own that. And I need to let someone know I can't possibly fit this in my day today without going criminally insane, right? And so this is going to have to go. This is too heavy for my boat today. It will not make my boat go faster. Okay. So also, I want to bring up this Tim Ferriss question. And this is something that I'm going to paraphrase again. I did not take the time to go and look at this up, but he says something to the effect of, what are the bare minimum things that I need to do today that I really need to make sure that the top of the top things that have floated to the top, what are the actual things that I must do, right? In order to actually feel like I accomplished something today. And it's usually the things like, you know, picked up my kids from school, if I have to do that. The things that if I do this stuff, this very brass tack stuff, and I make sure that I do that, it will avoid, it's like a stitch in time saves nine. It will avoid, oh, the school's calling me going, is anyone picking up these children? Right? Like, I mean, there are cascades of natural consequences that happen with a lot of these obligations. And that's how they turn into opportunities, is I have the opportunity to avoid those kinds of situations, and my kids being mad at me like, what the heck is wrong with you? Like, that is old behavior, mom. Like, that is like drinking behavior. And thank God my first four are the only ones that ever saw any of that drinking behavior 13 plus years ago, where it was like, oh yeah, I forgot I have to do this for you. Oh yeah. And it had that have to mentality, not get to mentality, that like, oh, I have breath in my lungs, so I get to pick you up from school today. I get to do this, right? That's how that kind of begins to have that reframing switch. It's not like every day you wake up and you look at all this stuff going on and you just kind of get overwhelmed and you just go, no, it's fine. All right. It's not always like that. There are some days where I am just trudging through, and that's okay. That is normal, but it's not how I like to be if given the opportunity. And when I say given the opportunity, really what I mean by that is making the opportunity to sit down and do this process, even really quickly, just to sketch it out. whatever it is that is going to get us to that point where we are understanding that obligations can turn into opportunities, right? By absolutely prioritizing the things that need to get done, that will have severe consequences if we don't do them, right? We need to put those at the top. Now, as I wrap this up, I'm going to share something that my friend and I once did. We both had, this is my best friend, we both had like 5 or 6 phone calls that we had to make. And these are like phone calls, not things we could do online, not things that we could just kind of shove aside and disappear. No, no, no. Like these were like we had to do phone calls, whether or not this was canceling some subscription or making an appointment or swapping a child's appointment, whatever it was. We had like 5 or 6 things each that we had to get done by phone. Now, for somebody who's an introvert like myself, and I know that that seems strange because people think, oh, well, you're outgoing, you're an extrovert. No, no, I really truly get recharged batteries by like not being around people. And then other times I'm randomly an extrovert. I don't know. As I mentioned, I'm crazy. But again, that's a whole nother thing. So for me, picking up the phone these days, which is a miracle, I'm Gen X. We use the phone all the time prior to the late 90s, right? We didn't have the option of online appointments. We didn't have these kinds of like you can book a hotel. Oh, maybe that's a bad example because hotels are open 24/7. You can make a restaurant reservation at 3 in the morning, right? We didn't have those opportunities back then. We had to wait and make a phone call in the morning, right? Yeah, poor me. I know, world's smallest violin, right? But my story is this. We both had these phone calls that we had to make. And so this is an age-old ADHD trick is to get a body double, right? So my friend picked me up and the two of us drove to a Starbucks parking lot. We got a coffee and we got back in the car. And she and I took turns. It's called a body double. We got those phone calls made by taking turns. First, I made a phone call and I was able to cross off my list. Okay, I made that appointment because the phone call has been made. And then she made a phone call and she had to call up and cancel this like Beachbody subscription. Nothing against Beachbody, right? She had to cancel something like that that she was paying for that she hadn't used in like 3 years, right? And then she got to cross that off her list, right? And then I made a phone call, and then she made a phone call. This probably sounds absolutely ridiculous to some of you. To others of you, you're like, that's the best idea ever, right? And then there are people all in between on, both sides of that whole thing. But really and truly, that is what it took for us to accomplish this set of obligations. We turned them into opportunities. It was an opportunity for us to be together. It was an opportunity for us to hang out. And it was an opportunity for us to practice Rule 62. Okay. Rule 62 is don't take yourself too damn seriously. And it's a 12-step phrase or saying. So the two of us got this opportunity to just kind of laugh at ourselves and just go, can you believe we are really this weird that, or lame that we just cannot actually pick up the phone and use it unless we have accountability? And I mean, it's funny, but it is true. If there's anything in your life that you have like required a body double for, there's like this tendency to want to spiral into shame about it, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this. And laugh about it. That's fine. But then just go, hey, you know what? I'm freaking brilliant. I figured out how to get this stuff done. I found a workaround, right? I got a body double and I made those phone calls. And that is understanding how obligations can become opportunities. So thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Remember to be kind, rewind, and I want to thank you so much for the honor of your time. Take what you like and leave the rest behind.